It is a very dangerous situation, and indeed it illustrates the dangers in the entire region of the impact of the Syria conflict on neighboring states, including on Iraq. So it underlines the importance of renewed efforts over the coming months to bring about a political solution in Syria. But in Iraq, of course, it is also vital there is some political progress that helps the Iraqi government to respond effectively to this.
So is ISIS actually achieving its goal of an Islamic state across Iraq and Syria? For more on this, I'm joined by Faraz Gerges. He's a friend of the programme. He's also director of the Middle East Centre at the London School of Economics. He's also the author of Obama in the Middle East and the Rise and Fall of Al-Qaeda. Thank you so much for joining us. We're looking at this map about the progress, which tells a story, really, of the progress of ISIS in Iraq. And that's the frightening picture that we're faced with. Why does it matter?
It matters a great deal. ISIS now, Max, controls almost 50% of Iraqi territories. 50% in the last 1 year. Not only it controls 50% of Iraqi territories, it controls also large chunks of territories in Syria, Al-Raqqa province and Deir ez-Zor. And what they're trying to do is to really have a contiguity between Iraq and Syria in order to do what? In order to establish what they call a caliphate, or a centralized state governed by Islamic law. So this is territory really lies at the heart.
It's a vast area, and you've just described a strategy, and they've achieved it.
So far. I think this is a fragile state on sand. It's a fragile state on sand. We should not exaggerate the strengths of ISIS. What we need to understand is that why ISIS has been able to do what it has done so far. Several reasons. You have a major social and political and sectarian rift in Iraq. This particular rift, Max, has allowed ISIS to basically position itself as the spearhead of the Sunni community. It has found a shelter, refuge, and a social base. This particular social base, among the Sunni Arab community, has allowed ISIS to gain momentum and recruits. In fact, I would argue that the top leaders, the rank and file of ISIS, are hardcore element officers and soldiers of the former Iraqi army, Saddam Hussein, which was dissolved by the Americans. Hundreds, if not thousands, of skilled officers and soldiers of Saddam Hussein joined ISIS, has allowed ISIS to basically have skills, to have motivation, to have command and control. It's a mini army fighting both in Iraq and in...
It was a very skilled army in its day, wasn't it? They haven't lost those skills. We've got these dots here. These represent the towns that they've taken, right? So that is the basis of their control of that region?
Absolutely. So you're talking about really, they control now two major cities in Iraq. They control Fallujah and they control Mosul. Mosul is the second largest city in Iraq, 1.8 million Iraqis.
And probably the most wealthy, right? Because all the oil's there.
Historical city, it's in terms of banking. They basically seized $420 million from the banks in Mosul. Dozens of tanks and armed vehicles, not to mention heavy weapons. Plus, Mosul is the gateway to Syria, and also it borders Turkey. So again, this is part of their strategy to have contiguity between Iraq and between Syria. Now, they took over most of Tikrit. So they have the Anbar region, they have Mosul. So really they have been able to gain more and more territories as a result, not only of relying on skilled fighters, the disintegration of the Iraqi army.
Well, they've got territory, they've got wealth, they've also got a charismatic leader in a country lacking leadership, right? This is the man. What do we know about him? Because surely he's got to be one of the biggest threats on the planet right now.
Absolutely. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi basically replaced the original leader of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi. He was killed by the American in 2006. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has a doctorate in Islamic studies. He's really not a military man.
Roughly?
He's about 50, 55 years old. He did two things, very strategic things. First of all, he restructured ISIS, because it was very fragile and weak in 2010, 2011, and he integrated many skilled fighters from the Iraqi army that was dissolved by the Americans when they invaded Iraq. Officers, the top leadership of ISIS, skilled fighters. I cannot stress this importance. And the second thing he did, he established a branch in Syria, gained more recruits, more money, more operational experience, and now he's fighting two battles on two fronts in Syria and in Iraq.
Successfully.
So far, successfully. The question is, how do you face ISIS? You cannot defeat ISIS by using the security forces. You have to basically, convince Sunni Arabs, the social base, that ISIS does not really represent a future. You do it by establishing a national unity government in Iraq, by trying to bridge the basic divide in Iraq, and by also rebuilding the Iraqi army, making it a national unified army, as opposed to being a sectarian militia.
It's a frightening situation. Faris, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We'll be watching it very closely. Still to come tonight, with the first whistle just a day away, Brazil's president speaks about her country's difficult route to World Cup readiness. Also ahead, taxi drivers across Europe have spread onto the road to cause a jam. They're looking to drive away the